Hey everybody, welcome to the NEPA Scene Podcast, the only live streaming in-person arts and entertainment podcast covering northeastern Pennsylvania, offering a true alternative voice in local media. We're coming to you from the NEPA Scene studio underneath Center City Print in downtown Scranton. I'm Rich Howells, the founder and editor of NEPA Scene, and tonight we're here with Scranton Shakespeare Festival directors Lizzie Newcomb-Gamula, Stephen Murphy, and Michael Bradshaw Flynn. Their latest production, Spring Awakening, will be held at the Shake Space at the Marketplace at Steamtown on Friday, January 10th through Sunday, January 12th. So we're talking about updating this 1891 play and making it relevant for modern audiences, putting on a rock musical with Black Tie Stereo and Modern Ties vocalist Stephen Murphy, the origins of the Scranton Shakes back in 2011 and how it has grown into a successful nonprofit since, innovating in the local theater scene, partnering with local charities on post-talk show talkbacks and donations, and much, much more. So please join our conversation with your questions and comments down below. We'll get to those later on in the show. Before we dive in, I want to thank our sponsor, Center City Print, who has provided the studio space for us. Use promo code NEPA Scene in person or online at Center City Print for 10% off. Center City Print can bring your ideas to life in 4 locations: Scranton, Old Forge, Kingston, and Hazleton. These one-stop shops are locally owned and operated, offering high-quality printed products, copy and print services, and design solutions to help you, your small business, your nonprofit organization, your band, your art project, your event, or any venture thrive. Use promo code NEPA Scene in person or online at centercityprint.com for 10% off.
Can I run, or is it?
Sure. I can get on the Facebook, Liz. Just turn on the phone.
All right, so we'll start by, if you could tell us a little bit about yourselves and your position with the Scranton Shakespeare Festival.
Sure. My name is Michael Bradshaw Flynn. I am the producing artistic director as well as co-founder of the Scranton Shakespeare Festival.
My name's Stephen Murphy. I am the music director for this production of Spring Awakening, as well as having worked as music director for plenty of productions in the past.
And I'm Lizzie Gamula. I am one of our associate producers of the festival, as well as our director of education, and I'm the director of Spring Awakening.
So take us back to, how did you originally get into theater? Was this something you did in school? Was it something you picked up later in life?
Well, I can start because Michael was a part of that. I started doing theater when I was in middle school. I was an actor. I don't act anymore, but when I acted in high school, Michael stepped in. We were doing Miracle on 34th Street at Scranton Prep, and Mrs. Moyles, for those of you watching who remember her, she was ill, and so Michael stepped in super last minute and kind of introduced me to kind of what theater could be, and just something I'd never seen before with theater. And that summer, he invited me to be a rehearsal accompanist at Scranton Shakes, and that's how I got involved there. But yeah, I would say, Michael, you're actually a big reason why I do theater.
That. Wow.
Oh my gosh, well, yeah, it's true.
Well, you were also there for my first theater experience.
That's true, too.
Which was long before high school, but I think I was about 5 years old, and we did like a local play. I don't know who put that on.
I don't know who was responsible for it, but Kathy Satile and Kim Ganal, who were both Scranton Public School teachers at the time, and they assembled like a group of elementary and middle school students. And we went to the Capitol, right? We went to DC.
Yeah, we performed
and
in
we
DC.
performed these like fun kid musicals in DC and Harrisburg and Neil Armstrong Elementary School.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's new lore.
We go way back.
Oh, we've got a repertoire of songs you've never heard before. When that cabaret comes, get ready.
It's gonna be good.
Get ready.
Sean was there too.
Sean Gibbons, yeah.
I know, good times. And I would say I don't know where it happened, but I can remember being a preschooler at John Marshall Elementary School, and it was like one of the first days, and I could remember kids not wanting to stay at school, and there was a bunch of big cardboard blocks, and I just went over to them and I was like, let's build a stage, which kind of has been like a mantra, I guess, of my life. That's sort of what I've been doing since that time, but I don't know where that came from or how this sickness started. But that is kind of like the earliest memory I have of it, and like making friends and family members be in like skits of things I would see.
Yeah, it's weird. It's just like it's one of those things that's just like in you for some reason, that you just kind of like when I was in high school, like I had no kind of experience with any of that kind of stuff, but I knew I wanted to do like theater in high school. I was greaser number 5 in Greece. So thank you for I appreciate. Yeah. Obviously, it was a big influence on all of your careers. I'd imagine it's a legendary performance. No, I had to work my way up. Eventually, I got to be Henry Higgins in My Fair Lady.
There you go. That's
Absolutely.
a classic.
So yeah, that was a lot of fun. But it gave me the ability to be able to do this. I might not have necessarily gone on to do a bunch of plays or anything after that. I always maybe eventually, at some point, I would get back into it. But it gave me the ability to be able to speak in front of people, which was just something I could not do before I got to those theater classes. So it really does make a difference in all different kinds of ways. And I'm sure you guys see that with the alumni that you're working with in this production. So this is part of the Spring Awakening, the show that you're doing now, is put on with alumni from the youth ensemble. So could you tell us a little bit about the youth ensemble and that program and how that works and how they got to where they are now?
Yeah, I could take that. So in 2020, I was working on a commercial shoot for Guy Singer, local thing, and Joey Daniel, who's one of our former producers, but still like a part of the SSF community, was working on it with me, and we sat down and we were like in between takes, and he was like, oh, the festival's are reaching its 10th season. Like, what do you want to see happen with the festival? And I was like, well, I don't know. I guess maybe like more education programming would be cool. I was in college still, and I had worked with the festival for like 6 years at that point. And the next week, Jerry texted me and was like, Michael and Jonathan want a proposal from you. And I was like, what do you mean? They were like, no, a proposal for the education department. I was like, oh, you actually want to hear about that. So that summer, like during our COVID podcast season, we were like mixing Pirates of Penzance like in Steven's basement, and like we were doing like a theater history podcast on Scranton Shakes, and I was coming up with this education model, and SSF had done a lot of really great workshops in the past, utilizing local high school students, but we never really had like a fully formed program that was the whole summer. So we started that in 2021 in our 10th season, and so now we're in our 5th year of doing that. We have a primary acting program with high schoolers, so it's kind of a pre-professional program where we introduce students to technical training and acting, vocal, dance, movement. We do master classes with them. And then they produce a full Shakespeare production and a full musical production. They also have the opportunity to be in our main stage productions. We have now programming for orchestra students that Steven and one of our alumni of the program, Julie Duskowski, runs. We have programs for technicians and also middle schoolers. So I guess the genesis for the alumni project was to kind of re-engage with those people and kind of take what we taught them throughout their various years of programming and kind of apply it to now kind of more so a professional production, and to get these students to work with one another even if they necessarily didn't work with each other in high school. So that was a broad overview, I guess. I don't know, do you have anything to add on?
I guess what I mean, Lizzie really took something that was very fledgling and developed it to the nth degree as far as like all of these different programs. We not only have high school students doing full Shakespeare productions, but full musicals. But I guess basically what I just want to see is something, that exists here that I would have loved to have done when I was in high school and growing up here. And I think the opportunities that Lizzie, Steven, and the team are, bringing to the amazing talent and pool of young creatives in our area has been just so exciting to be a bystander for. And when Lizzie pitched this project, I mean, it's a hard show. It's a musically challenging show, and it is also contains a lot of adult themes, and just a lot of care needs to be taken to like get you a good solid production. Much less, these students are all at different colleges and universities in different cities, so a lot of this was being rehearsed remotely before they came into town and worked on the rehearsal. But the truth is they're all just such great young performers and so talented that there was no way I could sort of say no to the proposal, because they've got the chops to do the work. And if they didn't have the chops to do the work, perhaps it would have been something a little less ambitious. But the amazing talent that we have from like all over this county and even further, our neighboring counties is Broadway bona fide in my humble opinion.
So why Spring Awakening? What was it about this show that spoke to you guys and made you want to put it on?
I genuinely, this show was not a thought until the last week of our summer season. We were finishing up Into the Woods, and ideas just come up sometimes, and I was like, you know what, it'd be super cool if we did Spring Awakening, but I didn't know kind of like where, what, how. I've always been drawn to the show. I saw it first at Act Out Theater Group like 12 years ago, when I was far too young to be seeing it. But it really impacted me. And then I saw the Deaf West revival on Broadway in like 2017. I saw their closing performance, and it was just the most profound piece of theater I'd ever seen. So it's been with me for a long time. And a lot of colleges and universities, I feel, produce it with college-age students. It's kind of actually the perfect content to produce with this age group. Like pedagogically and from an educational standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. But also just thinking then of like all the talent we had, I was like, oh my goodness, we have just these absolute A-list performers who are great humans to work with, really love stuff like this and want to be more involved and engaged. And it kind of just was like the perfect storm of, well, we could do Spring Awakening with the alumni, with me, Stephen, and Kelly. It just happens to be also like our top favorite show. So that personally is why it spoke to me. I mean, you also have Spring Awakening stories.
Yeah, I mean, so again, it's one of my favorite musicals. Came out when I was 13 years old. I got to see it on Broadway in its first year. Were you there for that?
I saw it. We didn't go together, but I did see it.
I remember I was too young to see it. But I do a lot of educational work in theaters as well. So sort of Spring Awakening, because of its adult content but young age cast, is sort of like, something we always throw around, like, are they ready for Spring Awakening? Can we do Spring Awakening with this group of people? Okay. Again, one of my favorites, beautiful score, fun score, great book, great play. And when Lizzie came to me with the idea, I was like, oh yes, we could do it. Like, we have the people. I'm psyched for this. I'll do this, 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 and this. And yeah, I mean, I've done it at the college level. I just did it again. I did it twice at the college level as a music director. And so that also made it easy for me to come into this process, this quick process, knowing the challenges, knowing how I wanted to shape the sound and what to look out for. And yeah, it was kind of just a perfect little storm of talent and timing. So,
and I guess what I would add is that, I feel like Spring Awakening sort of changed the form of musical theater as we know it. I remember being on a bus with the University of Scranton players to see the original show on Broadway, and like afterwards being like, whoa, I did not, we would never be able to do this show, and to be able to be a part of us being able to do it. And I think even though, of course, as a producer of this very sensitive work, we've taken the guardrails not only with like Stephen, Kelly, and Lizzie all being like entrusted with this youthful company, but also we brought in a professional intimacy director, Sean Patrick Gibbons, who's done a lot of, who's kind of pioneered this work. That's sort of like a new position of like learning how to address intimate choreography the way you would choreograph like stage combat, to do the same thing with more intimate moments, which has been really helpful and I think empowering for these young artists, just Absolutely. As it is for our adult company when we utilize his service or other intimacy director services. But I also think what's important is, when people hear Scranton Shakespeare Festival, some people jerk to like high school lessons of Shakespeare class and are, I'm not going to see Shakespeare, and we have parents be like, but it's not a Shakespeare show, it's a musical, and people are like, no, Shakespeare, and it's like, you just can't, they don't understand, but we want to let people know, and of course Shakespeare is our bedrock, it's a part of our mission statement, we will always be doing it because it's timeless, but for those who have no time and we cannot get to the seats, we want them to know we're doing other kinds of work, whether those are old Broadway classical favorites or whether those are reimagined musicals, operettas like Pirates of Penzance that are done like a radio opera during a plague, or this rock musical, which I think changed the form. And I think I'm trying to make sure, I split my time between here and New York. I've had the immense privilege to work as an associate director on Broadway shows, and like what's really important to me about the programming that we do here is that people are being given a plethora of variety of what theater could be. And of course we're always doing Shakespeare, sometimes classically, sometimes with a twist. We're doing musicals, but if we didn't do this show, I feel like we would be doing a disservice to the audience here, because it really did sort of change the form of the Broadway musical and what's marketable now. It really was that kind of a groundbreaking show that took an old German play about sexual awakening, and basically then took, a pop Grammy-winning musician, Duncan Sheik, and we're like, let's put this together and see what happens. And, it wound up creating careers for, Leah Michelle, Jonathan Groff, John Gallagher Jr., but it opened the way for Green Day to come in and be like, okay, yeah, let's do American Idiot as a rock musical, Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson, and all Six, Spring Awakening kind of was, in my opinion, the ground zero of that since Hair.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I'm excited that we get to share it with people, even though, it's got its fans. There's no question about that. There are people who love this show, who don't love theater, this show speaks to them because it does breach a lot of different subjects. But even if it isn't your cup of tea, I still think, going to it and leaving, you'll be all the more of a well-rounded theater goer from experiencing it with really great talent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So for those who haven't seen the show yet, what maybe a little plot summary or an idea of what the story is about, and maybe how does that resonate with people now?
Sure. Spring Awakening follows a group of young adolescents who are about to become teenagers in the 1890s in Germany. They're in a conservative kind of parentocracy, so they are suppressed from kind of being themselves in every sense of the word. So whether that be, expressing their anxiety or depression openly, or whether that be their queer identity or just their overall sexual identity, they are being kind of silenced in every sense of the word. So basically it follows a bunch of different storylines, and kind of something happens to each one of these students throughout the story, and they each hit kind of a different topic. Overall, I guess the messaging is that it is a morality play that highlights the dangers of when parents don't talk to their children openly or teach them, and also that they're always listening, and that children know far more than maybe, the parents realize and that they're letting on to. So, I would say that's a short summary, but also that it does break the form, like Michael said. Like it's also kind of this rock modern example of how, even though we're in the 19th century, that they whip out these handheld mics as soon as they start to sing, and we change the lights into this like beautiful, like I think it's like in the stage directions, glittering dream world at some point of song. So you're kind of like oscillating back and forth and creating this really cool dichotomy between stark, rigid petticoats, knickers and trousers and garters, to handheld microphones and flipping off the teachers when they get expelled. Yeah.
So, Stephen, for you as a music director, and also a guy who's in a modern rock band, too, technically, kind of, sort of, with Black Tie Stereo and Modern Ties. So, how did that inform your approach to doing the show?
Well, I mean, as I said, I saw this show when I was 13 years old, which is about the time I joined my first band. So all of a sudden, like, this classical music world, this theater world, this rock band world were all coming together with a production like this. And so they've really influenced each other for as long as I've been around. As far as, like, obviously from being in a band, being in Black Tie Stereo over 10 years, I know how to work with, the rock elements of this score pretty handily. Like, I'll be able to, direct the guitarist, drummer, and bassist, all of which we have, like, to do what I want them to do, how to make this sound the way that it should. But then we also have, a whole string section, because that's what this show is orchestrated for. So it really blends a bunch of, different elements together, be it classical or rock or pop, in a really nice way. That, and also, think of the music that was coming out in 2006 when this came out. Like, you're talking like Fall Out Boy, American Idiot, Green Day, like all this kind of style, this like pop punk style, where this show came out right in the middle of that. And the singers, Jonathan Groff, especially John Gallagher Jr., Skylar Aston, like, they're all singing that style in the original cast. And in a way, yes, it's a period piece in 1890s Germany, but it's also a period piece of, like, what was music like for us in 2006. And so taking these kids who were 3 years old when that happened, they don't remember. It's like, no, this is the style that this should be sung in. Like, this is
so there's a learning curve for them.
Oh, absolutely. And so it's like going back to the roots of what this music is about. Why do they pull out a microphone when he gets yelled at in class and sings the song "The Bitch of Living"? Like, that's certainly something that, like, the style of the music at the time is going to inform. So it's definitely, helped me tell the cast, like, sort of what I want the shape of this show to be, just from playing this style of music for almost 20 years. So
this is a question for everybody. What have you learned about the show as a result of working on it? Because obviously you had your own opinion going into it of seeing it and being influenced by it, but actually getting into the nitty-gritty and putting it on and working on it probably would give you a different perspective, I'd imagine.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for me, part of it is the untold moments, because obviously, like, you listen to the cast album in the car. I live in Philadelphia full time, so I'm commuting back and forth on the turnpike listening to the Spring Awakening score just any chance I get, which is actually, the cast album is quite different than the score. But what moments do you not get to, like, see in your brain until you're in the room? I think that I love working with this specific group because they're so independent in kind of, like, the choices they make. And I will have completely blocked a scene, and then, Teddy Novak, who plays our Mort Stiefel, will come in and do something absolutely insane without me even telling him, and I go, okay, well, that's what I want now. And that happens vocally too. I mean, like, they've started to do things, or they've started to riff here, do something there, and I'm like, okay, that's not what it sounded like in my brain, but it's better. So I think it's them. I attribute it to the cast. I mean, they're just spectacular. They're like, every performance is just 150%. And you've got like Maddie Casey, who's a 21-year-old professional actor working and living in New York on the grind. And we've got our freshly 18 freshman in college who plays our lead, Venla Bergman. And you've got like, just all of their caliber is so high that I think just the way I perceive the show now is through them. I mean, obviously, we don't have Leah Michelle, we don't have Jonathan Groff, and I'm glad we don't have them because they're great, but I'm glad we don't have them because we don't need Leah Michelle and Jonathan Groff. But they have translated the text in such a way that is just so gorgeous. So yeah, I guess I attribute anything new that I've learned to the way that they've shown it to me. Which has been, obviously, that's just always an educator's dream, is that your kids and your students teach you more than you teach them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, even again, I've done the show twice before, and I've noticed moments that, like, even something as subtle as I cue the music off of this line doesn't work for this cast. Like, so now I've noticed I'm going to cue the music at this different time because this cast member is bringing a different emotion there. There's a really, I don't want to give any spoilers, but there's a moment in Act 2.
Are you talking about
the blackout?
Yes.
Yes.
We just worked on.
That we just
before we
worked
crossed
on.
the street to come over here.
And so in rehearsal, Lizzie said the music is going to come on the blackout. And I was like, really? Like, you don't want any silence after that? And she's like, no, the impact is the music with the blackout. And then we tried it, and I was like, that's not how I did it before. And I was like, wow, I love that. And so for whatever reason, like, that's the beauty of live theater, the beauty of different productions. Like, even if you saw this original Broadway production, you're going to learn something different about the show because of the differences in cast and production and everything. And it's...
I'll actually add on to that because Kelly, our choreographer, Kelly Jean Graham, who is... So now Stephen Kelly and I worked on, like, what, 3-4 shows together now? With just the three of us in these same roles. And we definitely now have this, like, stupid language where we just, like... we just automatically, like... Kelly has said things that I'm like, Kelly, I was just about to tell you that. But she has interpreted things in such a way through the movement as well. And she's also in the show for like half the show. She plays the adult one. She's in like 10 different characters running around and then also watching the scene she's not in as the choreographer, which, so like, shout out to Kelly Jean. But the way that Kelly Jean has done that as well has been super impactful. There's also a moment at the end of the show that you made a suggestion on that I was like, wait, what? And we tried it, and Kelly is in the moment, and I was like, it was like all of like the lines connected in my brain, and I was like, I think I'm conscious for the first time. It was like, it's just so special to be able to work with people where you feel like that. But once again, also goes back to these kids where like they also help make that happen. Like, they do everything we say. They just get it. They understand. Like, we'll give them... We don't even have to do a baseline. Not like, they just understand the vibe, and then they get to go like so much deeper with it. You don't have to just explain the basic mechanics of this with them. Like, you get to go so deep with them.
So you're also working with the Catherine McCauley Center and Friends of the Poor to do what is a post-show talkback. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this is not something new to Scranton Shakes. For years, Michael has been a steward of kind of bringing conversation with the community into our context of the show. So we've done them for several years now, in which we'll stay after the show. The audience can, take a bathroom break, whatever, come back, sit down, and have a chat with the cast and the company to talk about the themes of the show. I think where the producer brain starts to think when doing Spring Awakening is how can we make an impact in the community? I mean, it is just a show that runs the gamut of important topics that are so relevant to exactly what's going on in our world. And Scranton Shakes has never been one to shy away from that, and has never been one to shy away from like not talking about things that are important. So specifically with Catherine McCauley Center, our goal is to spread awareness of women's health, family, displacement, and poverty. And so we'll be doing post-show talk back after every performance, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And that'll be co-moderated by kind of us and members of the McCauley Center team, just to talk about, you know, what the audience just saw. I mean, there is a lot of like shocking material in the show, and for people who've never seen the show before, they're going to have some questions, I bet. And they might not know about the theater magic of, well, this is actually how we do an intimate scene. You know, they're not actually doing X, Y, or Z. There's like, you know, kind of barriers and anchor points where it's, you actually do something, but it doesn't look like you're doing it. So, you know, talking about that, and then also talking about why, you know, the show is relevant to Scranton, is kind of, I guess, always the goal. Michael has always liked to do shows, and obviously you can speak to this too, but of shows that specifically impact our community. And the McCauley Center has always been near and dear to my heart, so I knew that when we were doing this, I wanted to talk to them about that.
Right. I think just to sort of reiterate what you were saying is just any way we can engage with our audience, we're here to do that, and we want, you know, the absolutely beautiful thing about theater is that it can bring people of completely different perspectives, experiences, worldview, and especially what we try to do, especially in our summer program where we offer free Shakespeare, is we try to make that accessible as well for people who, you know, might have some financial constraints, that they can all come in, sit down, put the outside world behind them, and just take in what's being presented to them. And I think the wonderful thing about a talkback is it sort of like, you know, lifts that curtain up a little bit and allows the audience to engage in a more direct way than just clapping their hands or wiping away a tear.
Yeah, and I think it's important for these students to talk about their experience because, you know, they're the ones who've brought these characters to life, who, you know, experience depression or anxiety or, you know, have sex for the first time. I mean, those are all like huge life events and things that are happening. And a lot of these things are also small, of like discovering acne for the first time, like, you know, discovering that your body has curves. Like, these are all things that are universal that everyone goes through, and just sometimes we just don't talk about them, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't. Also at the McCauley Center, we're doing a lot of menstrual health awareness. So we'll be doing a period product drive at the show. So if you come see the show, which we hope you do, bring any unused tampons, pads, period products to the show, and those will all be donated to the McCauley Center and given to people in poverty who can't otherwise afford them. We also are selling friendship bracelets that represent the menstrual cycle, and all of those proceeds will go to Scranton Shakes. And then we'll also have a resources packet. I think, you know, for some audience members, this could be a very like triggering show, or there could be a lot of content in the show that maybe is just difficult, and so having a resources packet of kind of like local and national level resources as to like how they can get help or how they can be a bridge to help someone else is also super important, that we're kind of like paying that forward as well.
It's amazing too that you know, a lot of these topics like menstrual health have been such a thing that nobody would talk about for generations, and we're still in 2025 still not only not talking about it, but then politicizing it too.
Yeah.
Like that drives me crazy. Like that I can't even, like, what is it's something that everybody has to deal with. It's something that is a part of everyday life, and yet we still can't even remotely broach on the subject without getting some kind of derision or giggles or turning into a political argument now. Like, that's crazy. So something like that, I think, is really cool. It's really important.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the whole message of the show, is exactly what you just said.
So what I also want to talk about is in the music scene, it seems like last few years, especially, it gets more and more difficult to get people to come out to shows, and whether it's due to financial issues or changing habits since COVID, or younger generations maybe not being as engaged with whoever they're waiting for another generation of bands to come up. There's a lot of different ideas or maybe excuses that people talk about. Is it the same in local theater? What is the local theater scene going through right now? Have things kind of bounced back since COVID? Is it still kind of difficult?
I think, excuse me, I'll take that one.
Yeah, go for
I
it.
think what we saw was our 9th season was the year COVID hit, and we did our radio plays. And then our 10th season, which was a pretty big landmark, we did productions at the Iron Furnaces, and we had insane crowds. We, if you're familiar with that amazing historical site in downtown Scranton, I mean, it's pretty big. And we had, some nights we had upwards of 500 people coming out to see shows with their picnic blankets and just joining us for the, a night of theater under the stars. So right after COVID, we were okay. But what we found, since moving to a more intimate space and, the Shake space, which, is brought to us by the amazing generosity of the marketplace at Steamtown and John Basiliga and everyone there who, allows us to have a roof over our heads, which is just so profound, and after 10 years so very needed for our organization. It's just been a bit more of an intimate turnout, but I would say that financially it seems like we're still having enthusiastic patrons join us, and I think there are some people who are a bit like, oh, we missed it when you did it at the baseball field, or we missed it when you did it outside. I was like, right, until there were downstorms, or until there was
we were losing money.
the Oregon wildfires, or we couldn't breathe the air, or and then you don't think of how much it costs to rent the porta potties to do these outdoor spaces. There's just so much logistics that go into all of this. And then there was one of these people I had finally seen. I was like, well, we did this show outside and we didn't see it. She goes, it was too hot. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, well, then there's no pleasing you, Mr. Powers. I don't know what we can do here. So I think what we found a little bit though is that it seems like financially the inflation thing seemed to maybe creep people in terms of sponsoring it for a little bit, or being able to donate towards it. I think that's something that we found, and but I think the enthusiasm is still there, and there does seem to be some sort of lingering hesitancy, I would say, but we're not discouraged. When things do get tough, you look at this amazing talent of up and coming youth, the people we're dealing with now, or some of the amazing actors, both locally or who have kind of come in to work with us, and the amazing things they've done, and that sort of allows you to take heart, and edifies your mission of this is important.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think our kids really, and our students and their families, are one of the big reasons why we've expanded our audiences, because like Michael was saying, we reach 15 school districts, and that's across Lackawanna and Luzerne County. So you see kids from Tunkhannock and Wilkes-Barre area and Dallas and Prep and Abington, all under the same roof, and then their families meet, and now you have this massive community of patrons now who come and sit in the front row at every show, and are so supportive of all the programming we do. I think of our Panto production that just closed of Cinderella, and just seeing so many students there, the one-off show that I was able to attend, and it's really opened up, I think, through all of our students to engage with them, but also in turn we're also seeing them see pantomime for the first time. A lot of these students are going to be singing Spring Awakening for the first time. To know that kind of SSF has been the first place where a lot of these people have seen Othello, or these amazing great works with Connor McGuigan at the helm of this show. It's really special, I feel, to be able to share that with kind of the younger generation, and cultivate our audience in a way. I think they've been a big part of that as well.
Agreed. It's kind of like the dream game. Remember, like all the different like high school athletes from all the different teams who
That's
come
exactly
and they
what it
play.
feels
Like
like.
it's like
Yeah.
it's this beautiful moment of like a dream game for like performers, and
Yeah.
you know, I feel like this area, it's gotten better, but like
Yeah.
we've got a lot of work to do. As somebody who like split my time between being an athlete in high school as well as a thespian, you know, I think we've gotta. I'm glad that we're doing our part, and I know the Fringe is doing their part
Yeah.
to like elevate the artist scene here and the creative
Totally.
person. So yeah.
I feel like we should.
Yeah, we have a tech rehearsal.
We have to finish a run.
That's okay.
We've got a few more like cues. We got to the
We have
blackout.
more
and
than
then
a
what happens next?
few. We definitely should go soon.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll continue the conversation if that's cool.
Sure.
But is there anything else that you want to mention about the show or anything like that before we get out of here? Before you guys have to get out of here?
Go for it.
I think, you know, it's I know personally, like if someone says like this musical, go see a musical, like they think it's a musical, like it's really fun. It's not like that. Really, I would recommend it truthfully to like any fans of like pop or rock or even like traditional show tunes. I mean, there's really something in it for everyone. That's why, you know, it won Best Musical, it won Grammys, it won everything 18 years ago. It's just really one of those landmark theatrical productions. So even if you've never seen a performance, whether it's Scranton Shakes or Broadway or whatever, it's really one that I don't think you'll be disappointed in.
Yeah. My thing is that if you do want to come see the show, which I hope you do, but it's supposed to make you feel uncomfortable, and I feel like a lot of the times we like shy away from uncomfortability, but it's kind of a superpower to be able to live in that, and I think people should do it more. And I think that this show has so many amazing messages. It teaches you so much about perhaps like looking a little bit more inward, but also looking at your community and kind of the people around you. So my hope is that people come and are uncomfortable, and that it's okay actually to not like the show. I will tell the quick story that I feel like I've told everyone at this point now, that when I went and saw it when I was in high school with my mom, who is like, she's probably watching right now. Hi, Mom. She loves musical theater, loves supporting me. We've seen so many Broadway shows together. It was one of the only awkward car rides I've ever had with my mom home, because she just was so shocked by the material, and I think some of the messaging definitely hits close to home for our family, and she was actually like, Lizzie, I didn't like that. Why did you take me to see that play? And meanwhile, I'm like sobbing in the seat, like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. It was closing show. Like, Steven Sater was on stage giving a speech, and like Leah Michelle Jonathan, like they all were there. It was like the best night of my life. And she didn't like it. And I thought, well, you don't need to like it to appreciate it. And
Sure.
unprompted, months later, she came up to me and was like crying with her headphones in, and was like, I get it now. So I guess my advice is come see the show, be uncomfortable, let it sit, and you don't have to like it, but you can definitely appreciate it. And if anything, come see them amazing, amazing talent. Like I could cry thinking about just any one of their talents is enough to kind of make me feel fulfilled. And it's been a really great project to work on, and I'm really excited for people to see it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time. I'll let
you.
you guys go to.
Yeah, I'm surprised our stage manager hasn't texted us to yell at us yet.
Maybe me, because I'm.
But you
the
guys
late
stay tuned. We're continuing the conversation.
Have fun.
one. Bye, Michael.
Have fun, guys.
You're
See you in
very
a bit.
welcome.
See ya.
Thanks, Rachel. See you soon.
Yeah, nice to see you guys.
Should I move over? Is this
Yes, please move over. Yes.
Ah, finally.
There you go.
Now we're gonna get the uncandid. Exactly. Exactly. This is when you can read all the mean tweets about me or something.
Well, wait till they get out the door, and then we can talk about them. All right.
Comments about the.
All right. Tell them how you
See you.
Oh my God.
good luck getting out. It's kind of ironic. I'm a director without a sense of direction. Like even in the neighborhood of Scranton, I'm still just like, wait, what turn is Zumos on? Like I still get lost here.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird windy basement down here. So yeah, you could definitely get lost.
Totally. I will, but once I get out that door, I think I'll find it back to the marketplace.
Yeah,
hopefully.
Follow the heat.
Exactly.
It's cold
Yeah. Right. All those lights.
Yeah.
Lights in the city.
You would hope. So I want to go back to the beginning of the Scranton Shakespeare Festival.
Sure.
How did this is going back to 2011? Was it? Mm-hmm. So how did this whole thing get started?
This whole thing started. I was an actor working on a production of Hamlet in Binghamton, New York, and most of these performances that we were in rehearsal for were for schools. And as one might assume, working on a production of Hamlet in Binghamton, New York during the winter, we had snowstorms like all the time. So a lot of these performances didn't happen, and so there I was, a starving actor, like working on this production, and thinking I would love to bring this to my hometown. I think that'd be really fun. And I started talking to the director of that production, and she had worked on a production of Midsummer Night's Dream before that was just sort of done in an outside park or a parking lot. And then I started speaking to some local members of the community here, Gretchen and Tim Welby, who are, two amazing people, Scrantonians, who, give their heart to the Cultural Center and Broadway Theater League and Ballet Theater, and they were big fans of Shakespeare in the Park in New York, so they were amazing confidants and people to chat with about this. And I also spoke to a few other local members of, Broadway Theater League and, just Michelle Conaway McGrath, just people who had a foot in the, art scene as it was back then. And we were all kind of like, okay, I think we could do this. And, we were very fortunate. The University of Scranton took kindly to our mission, and they, had so generously provided us with a little bit of time that we were able to house some of our out-of-town talent. We were able to get some amazing in-town talent. And, we were doing this up at Neon Park where Blackwatch is. So that was our dressing room, that little stone hut, which when they were clearing it out, they were like, what are all these curtains doing here? But we were putting pamphlets on people's window shields in the parking lot, and we were hoping for 100, 200 people to show up. And to our surprise, we got over 1,200 people in just 2 performances. And from the meager budget that we had, we were able to make enough that we were able to become our own 501c3 organization. The next year, we were back in the park. We did a different Shakespeare comedy called Comedy of Errors, not one of his well-known shows, but very slapstick and funny and zany. And we had terrible weather. And so we were like, oh no, this is going to finish us, because, we had a very limited amount of resources. We painted this stain, no one's going to be here. And sure enough, there were people out there waiting for us with their wheelchairs and umbrellas, just basically being like, we're not going anywhere. We'll wait till this storm passes and then we'll perform. And again, just like the young people coming up asking for autographs from all of the actors afterwards, just continue to concretize the need for this kind of programming in the area. And simultaneous to this happening, my career in New York started taking off. I had an amazing opportunity to be the assistant to a Hollywood and Broadway playwright, Douglas Carter Bean, who actually spends all of his summers up at Lake Erie and Tunkhannock, and he was sort of playing around with the idea of maybe starting a theater in the area. One thing led to another. He's talking to Stephen Karam. Stephen Karam tells him to talk to Rich Larson at the University of Scranton. Rich Larson's like, he's like, well, I need an assistant for my new play. So he asked me, which I was super grateful for. And while I'm sort of putting together, this thing, which, was just going to be a one-off sort of summer park show, this Broadway playwright was basically like, I've got some new work that I would love to try out, and I can help subsidize this if you'd be open to that. So then not only are we doing a Shakespeare play our third season, but we now add into this a world premiere of a play by a Broadway playwright. We add in an operetta, and then just year after year our programming continues to expand, and the audience continues to show up, and we manage to get through it season after season, and it's really hard, but the need and the appreciation is there. And now that we've got this like whole plethora of like young people who are not only like excelling here in the now, but also just like looking at some of the amazing talent that started with us. I mean, for an organization, for a company that's about to enter their 14th season of work, we have a pretty profound amount of talent that has succeeded on Broadway, has succeeded on television. I'm sure some of them have filmed some films as well, and that's pretty staggering to know that where they cut their teeth was here in Scranton, Pennsylvania. So I love and am humbled by being a part of that. So that's how it started. But it wasn't really like I didn't initially have these like ideas of grandeur, and to think that we'd be doing Spring Awakening was kind of like a real pipe dream, so that it's kind of come to fruition, and we're able to do all different kinds of programming, and also like get the attention of Broadway and people like, it's funny, one of our alums just got married at a wedding in England, and we were all celebrating, and another SSF alum just landed a huge role on a new TV show that HBO is going to do with the one and only Steve Carell. And she was talking to him, and she was saying like, oh, I've been to Scranton, and I guess he was like, oh yeah, people like stop through, and she was like, no, like I've been to Scranton, and there's a Shakespeare festival, and I guess like he was really surprised that there was a Shakespeare festival. So It's really cool to know that like our reputation is really starting to like get out there in the water supply. And like, you think about this place, it's like in the 1930s, where we had like so many millionaires per square mile. We had anthracite, we had steel, we had silk, we had lace, and we had vaudeville. And I think there's something really to be said about just where we are geographically, and the fact that a lot of these theaters where once upon a time you'd be able to workshop shows in New York, like you can't afford to. So much theater space is disappearing in New York City, and I think that the rest of all the other big cities are going to follow suit. But like where we are geographically positioned seems ripe, in my opinion, for a place to try out work before it goes to New York City, before it goes to Philadelphia or Pittsburgh or Boston. I think we've got something really great, and I also think our audience is so diverse, so that also sort of adds to a good reason as to like why you might want to workshop stuff here before taking it out on the road. We all know that famous saying, if you can play Scranton, you can play everywhere. Yep. I think there's definitely something to that, and yeah, I'm just like really grateful and excited that I get to do that. And so many people who've never been here come here and like love it, and now have an opinion of it that isn't The Office or Joe Biden, like something Joe Biden has to say in a speech to connect to like people who are having hard times.
Yep.
I think too that was a thing. Like I can remember that SNL skit, and it's like one of the most watched SNL skits of Sarah Palin, played by Tina Fey, in the vice presidential candidate debate, and she could see Russia from her house, and then you have Jason Sudeikis playing Joe Biden, and he literally does like a 2-minute diatribe about like how horrible Scranton is, and like even in the vaudeville days when things were much rosier for us, like Scranton was always kind of the butt of a vaudeville joke.
Oh, for sure.
But I also think I didn't love that feeling, and I think there's a lot of really amazing talent that has come out of this city, and it's time to sort of change the national and global perspective of that.
Yeah.
Perception of that, I should say.
For sure. As much as The Office played into, Scranton being this like, working class, sort of humble little, town that's, is maybe a little out of date and that sort of thing and stuff too, it did help us kind of propel us forward a little bit too in terms of the national conversation, at least.
Of course.
And it still does.
Totally. I also think about When You Wish, Ned Washington, who wrote and won the Academy Award for When You Wish Upon a Star, the song, for Pinocchio. And it's like, I think he also won for he won an Oscar for another film too, but like Scranton native, born in Scranton. And it's like that song opens every single Disney movie all over the world.
Right.
And it's like that person is from here. Like, where I want to see that mural, of like if they'd ever let us make it. But like
Right.
seriously, I feel like that's so profound and exciting. One of the like most successful Broadway shows is Chicago. That was directed by, speaking of Greaser, one of the original Broadway T-Birds of Grease, Walter Bobby, who's from northeastern Pennsylvania. And, from here. So I think there's just something to be said. One of the shows I was working on Broadway, I was the associate director, was a play called The Front Page. And it's like an old play. Walter Matthau was in a movie, and then it was adapted into His Gal Friday. And it's just like snappy lines, journalists in Chicago all covering a case, and they're all like cutthroat. And it's all like, it's a 20s quick, witty, snappy kind of show. They're all horrible people. And I just kept laughing at these same lines over and over. And I was like, seeing as how I'm like working on the show, maybe I should like look up the playwrights. And one of them was from Scranton, born and raised. And it's just like, this is something. This is an interesting world.
Yeah.
So, I carry a lot of pride with it. And it's funny too, because I can think of, there was a time in my career where I was like, oh, I've gotta leave that behind me. Like, when we were on breaks, like celebrated Broadway playwrights or Broadway stars like Nathan Lane would come up to me and be like, so what are you doing in Scranton this summer? That's like what they cared about. You know what I mean? It was just like, what's the conversation? And so it was kind of like that Wizard of Oz revelation where it's, the thing home, the real message is home and the real sort of value is home. So that's always been important to me. And I'm so grateful too that the people here, have put up with me. Like I'm like that kid putting together those blocks in grade schools, or like roping cousins into like reenacting the Nutcracker with me. Like we really, I'm really grateful though that not only did I have so many people here that help cultivate that talent, but who held space for it and allowed it to happen, and also just the fact that we've had such an amazing audience of people who do sit out in the rain or who will come to see something that they don't know what it's about, has really, I think, allowed me an amazing opportunity to grow as a director, as an actor, as a producer, and just as a person. So yeah, that's my stump speech, I guess.
Now, do you feel that the future of local theater, not just here but anywhere in general, is kind of the approach that Scranton Shakespeare has taken in a lot of ways, where you're going to the people, you're putting on shows in maybe unconventional places, you're taking it out of the theater sometimes, not to put down the theater at all, but there's a place for that, but there's also something to be said about getting 1,200 people to come to a park to see a show in that format, and maybe something that normally, if it came to a theater like the Cultural Center or something like that, maybe that's not for me, but coming out to something like that, being more of a community type thing, and things being low cost or free, obviously helps too. But do you feel like that's kind of the future of theater and reaching new audiences and getting people to come to shows?
I do think it's definitely popular. I mean, it's funny, it started as a necessity for us, right? We didn't have a space to perform in, but some of the most exciting theater I've ever made and been a part of and witnessed, doing Damn Yankees at PNC Baseball Field. It's a baseball musical.
That's incredible.
And they were so kind to open their doors, and we were like, can we use the Jumbotron? And they were like, yeah. And so and we had a bench. It's some of the best work I've ever done, and I I can tell you that when people who get to operate on budgets, you know, significantly bigger than the one that we operate on saw that, they were just like, because you can't put that in a theater. That is a theatrical. It is theater, but it isn't. You can't put it in a theater. Doing a production of Cabaret at Madame Jenny's Speakeasy was, you know, so cool. And then what happened just last season? One of the hottest tickets in town was this production of Cabaret that came over from London, and they basically took a theater and like kind of gutted it and restructured it to make it feel like a nightclub speakeasy that was like very immersive. So I do think as theater makers, we've got to keep changing the game a little bit to bring people, to get people to go, because now everything's so convenient. You know, not only do we have streaming and YouTube, but like we can pull out our phone and we can all watch probably a bootleg version of Spring Awakening like on our palms right here. And so I think it is sort of tactics like site-specific work. You know, there's like the famous line in Gypsy, which is a musical we just did this past season, which is now on Broadway, and it's you got to get a gimmick, you know, so you do have to kind of figure out a way to get people. And you know, if we were charging $50 to see Shakespeare, I don't know that we'd fill the seats that we fill at $0 a seat. I don't think we could, and I do think that was a part of our genesis, in that when we were young and exploring stuff, we fortunately had a little more support from grants and foundations that we were able to subsidize this work and have people check us out. But I feel like now we're getting to a point where the operation's getting so big that we're like, we have to at least pay people enough to like eat while they're here, you know, or like sure. we can't, you know, and that's also the hard thing. But I do think you're it's a great question, and I think here what we are finding is that spins or interesting experiences do reshape people, especially because I feel like there are people who are like, oh, I don't like theater, I don't like shows, you know, because it's like, yes, I saw one bad production of this and I'm never going again, which is true, you know, and it's a hard thing, because like the artist in me is like, yes, more theater, but then the other thing is like, but what if you're doing a really bad production of this show, and then no one's gonna want to come see our production of that show because they're gonna be like, we saw that bad production of that show. Yeah. But that's the career I chose. Right. I'm horrible with numbers, so I couldn't become an accountant. No, so that's like, I think there is something to that, of like being able to figure out a way to, you know, entice people to come check you out. But I think at the end of the day, the play's the thing, like Hamlet says, and if you can do all that, but at a certain point, you're going to be able to smell the bullshit. And if you don't care about the characters, if you don't care about the story, even if it's in a pretty cool place, like, it's not going to stick with you, you know? Sure. And I don't like theater that doesn't shake you in some way. And it's funny because Lizzie was here saying how, you know, and that's totally a valid perspective about feeling uncomfortable. I don't know if it says anything about me as a person, but like, I didn't feel that. I guess I felt a tiny bit uncomfortable, but I was kind of like, I was living and loving. I was like, okay, wow, yes. And again, I was a bit older than she was, but like, I was in college and I was like, you know, feeling that sense of like, stifling and like wanting to just break through ideas of oppression. And so, but that's also the beautiful thing too, I guess, that everyone has a different experience, and like I said, comes to see the thing in with their own sort of like baggage. Sure. Yeah.
And you know, speaking of different places, with the Shakespeare, how did that come about? Like, it's interesting to think that there's this kind of black box sort of theater in our former mall. You know,
and just so you know, that's happened. That Broadway playwright will send me messages of being like, at a mall in England, and look what I'm finding, and he'll say, because so this is actually becoming a thing that malls and market, we're not allowed to say mall, but
at the
marketplace or malls have been experiencing this phenomena of like, okay, so much retail is going online, how do we create? And I think that's another great thing that John Besselig and the marketplace have been doing with that space, is they've been sort of recreating it as a hub of why people would go there. Yes. And think that we had actually done a site-specific show there. It would have been year 7, so about 7 years ago. We did How to Succeed in Business right at Center Court with the elevator. It's like an office show, so it's very much in the world of like people all over the place and like feeling like you're in an office. But then a few years later, we were supposed to be utilizing a space and it fell through. So we were kind of like, I don't know if these shows will work outside, and I don't know where outside we can do them. And luckily, at that point, it was right before Electric City Dentistry was doing their extension. So they had this big old hall, which I believe was the old Eddie Bauer. And they were like, it's going to be under demolition, but if you want it, we're not doing anything with it for a few weeks. Like, just take care of these costs and we can make it happen. And so we were able to get that through, and it was really successful, and I think their team was really happy with the energy and the experience, and I think some of the restaurants were also kind of like, wow, we're like really grateful for or glad that we're getting some, out of our 10-minute breaks, all of a sudden like 20 people are like coming over for like a coffee or a nice tea or this or that. So I think it seemed to be a good fit, and then every year that they've allowed us to stay. So then essentially that was going over to Electric City Dentistry once that season was over. And then they were like, well, we've got this other space, and it's a much different space. And in some ways it's, ideal because it's right at when you're coming up those escalators. We've got a beautiful little window case that we're able to utilize. And the wonderful Center City Print has printed us some beautiful posters that we could put up in there. So we're grateful that we get that. But the trick about it is it's got a lot of different like bends and curves. So I want to say like over the few years we've really been mastering like, okay, let's put platforms in there for seating, and so we're really figuring out every year how to recreate the space and according to the show. So we did a few shows last season, and every show had a completely different configuration, which was kind of a nightmare for like our team because we do something very crazy, which was like on a standard of the American theater, which is rep theater, which basically means you do all the shows all over the place. So basically we open a show a weekend, and then at the last weekend we do all the shows one more time. And the reason we do that is because we don't want to say goodbye to the show, but also because for a lot of people who have families who like are abroad, they'll come and they'll spend a weekend in Scranton. So they'll be in our hotels, they'll be going to our restaurants, which is great for economic stimulation in our area and our businesses. But it's also great because then the families can come in and see their kid in a bunch of different their family member or spouse or whatever, grandfather, in a bunch of different productions. And so that's been pretty cool and helpful. So that being said, that long rant is just to say that we got this space. We're so grateful for it, but we're constantly changing it around. Even for Spring Awakening, we have it in a formation that we haven't utilized yet. Last season when we did Gypsy, we had a full orchestra, like an orchestra that's almost bigger than what you'd get at a Broadway show, thanks to this youth orchestra program and some of the amazing local musicians who joined us for it. And we basically like made a pit that like there was a runway around, so it was just like a really exciting, it's a real fun thing to basically refigure out a space. It kind of reminds me of a friend who when we were little, he had a garage full of like all different toys and things, and we would make it into a haunted house, and basically that just meant you'd come in the dark and we would just be like throwing like basketballs, like shooting you with the water guns. But it was always sort of like, well, this is the room you've got, and you've got to like make something different every 20 minutes. And so that's sort of what I think of, and it's been great. We're so grateful to literally have a roof over our heads.
Yeah. And it's cool to think that that space is being used for something, because what is the number one thing that people say when talking about the former mall, the marketplace? So like, I wish this was here, this was there, that sort of thing, or I remember growing up and that sort of thing. And it's like, well, when was the last time you went in?
Right.
You know, like there's a Vietnamese place in there. Food is amazing. It's so good. Mm-hmm. But you have to go in and check it out, walk around a little bit. There are some cool stuff going on. So it's something that like you could easily miss and walk right by and not know that there's this really cool theater stuff going on in there. And there's also The space has been used. I've seen some music shows there and things like that too. So there's some other stuff going on as well.
I'm actually so glad you mentioned that, because that's the other awesome thing about this, is that not only are we the Shakespeare Festival able to do great stuff, but we have had the Scranton Improv Group has been in there. We've had Zach Sprouse just did an album release there. We've had trivia nights there. We've had people do paint and sips there. So we've been able to open up those doors. We've had veterans dinners there. So it's just so great to... It's not just for theater, you know what I mean? It's not just for play acting. It brings people together in all different kinds of ways, and I'm grateful. And you know, we've got the amazing Dawn McGurl, who's our chairperson, but she also sort of spearheads our special events. We're super grateful that of the organizations that have been like coming to us to allow us to sort of like partner with them or just provide a place for them. Fringe as well. We've been able to host some of their productions the last 2 years, which has been, you know, wonderful to be able to support another performing arts festival, as you know, they're trying to do the impossible here too. So yeah, that has been a wonderful thing about it, that it's not just theater.
So for people who want to find out like what's going on there, is it just follow you guys on social media, like the Scranton Shakespeare Festival, that type of thing?
Totally. I think our social media is probably strongest, and I would say our website's actually pretty regularly updated as well. Our managing director, Jonathan Stevens, he works for an airline, so he's always in the skies doing our updates, and he comes here every summer, and we love him. But yeah, I would say social media, Scranton Shakes, on Instagram. We're also on TikTok now. Facebook, of course, Scranton Shakespeare Festival, and then our website as well, scrantonshakes.com.
Okay. So it's only January, so what do you have in store for the rest of the year for Scranton Shakespeare Festival? I saw you have a show coming up in March.
That's true. So Brian McGurl brought to our attention, he's really been wanting to do this Irish play called The Shadow of a Gunman. And we've also really been trying to, you know, Michael Bradshaw Flynn, go figure, connect with our Irish roots here. And you know, we were like, well, maybe, and you know, there's just, we all know the parade is amazing, and the Friendly Sons and all the sister city. There's so many great Irish communities that exist in our community, and we thought it might be an exciting way to celebrate that culture with some Irish theater, which is, you know, as you know, the Irish, they've got the gift of gab. They can, for sure, they can tell a story, and after all, what is theater but telling a story? And this play is the Shadow of a Gunman, and what's amazing and so Irish about it is it's hilarious until all of a sudden it's not. And the themes are incredibly relevant, unfortunately so, but it says a lot about violence. It says a lot about civilian casualties. So it's a pretty timely piece, hilarious, and again, hardly ever done here. Very celebrated playwright, so we're excited, and we've even got some really exciting news about a guest lighting designer who is a Scranton native, who's gonna come back and, you know, is donating their time and their services to do some beautiful lighting design work in that space for us, which we're going to be releasing pretty soon. But again, I think that just goes to show all that it takes to like make this stuff happen. And again, we're talking about what does this space do for us and how did it change the game. I mean, for so long we were a summer festival, you know, we were able to come in this 7 or 8 weeks because these are the 7 or 8 weeks that the University of Scranton could grant us to be here. We do a concert here, we do a concert there to hopefully generate some funds. But now, you know, we were able to do our holiday panto. Now we're doing our Spring Awakening with our youth ensemble alumni, and then we're going to be doing this Irish play as well as those concerts. So we've really sort of graduated to a bit more of a regional theater organization, which is so exciting and humbling, and I'm really grateful and looking forward to see how that continues to develop. But yeah, busy.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
Anything else after that that you can confirm or that hint at?
We are probably going to we usually do like a cover show. Last year we did a Beatles tribute. The year before that we did a Sondheim tribute. So we are probably going to announce something for the end of April. We usually like to do like a birthday celebration for Shakespeare, have some free cake. Again, we have some great like artist galleries coming up with First Friday events. And then we'll probably do a concert, but we haven't released the artists that we're going to be celebrating just yet, but that'll be that, and then season release soon. The summer will be here before you know it. So, getting ready for season 14.
Oh, well, is there anything else you want to mention about Spring Awakening that we haven't covered, or Scranton Shakes in general?
Oh, I would say Spring Awakening, like I said, saw it in college, so I feel so much older seeing it now. But again, if you haven't seen it, it's kind of an ideal cast because they are in college. They're not too old for it, but also they've got some more tools to deal with the subject matter than perhaps age-appropriate high schoolers would be. They wouldn't be so appropriate.
Right.
And they've got voices, can sing for days. They're meeting the acting demand. So really great team. So definitely worth. If you're a fan of the musical, it's a great cast. They won't do you wrong. And if you aren't, or you've never seen it, they are definitely worth. They do the production justice, so definitely worth checking out. And then I would say if you are looking to get involved, whether it's behind the scenes, on stage, if you're just somebody who's in accounting who would like to help out an organization, we are always looking for volunteers as well as people to join our team. That's so essential to the theater. It will take everything you've got to give, quite literally. That's where all these grays are coming from.
I would imagine.
And so, we want everyone to feel involved, and especially I would say if you don't like Shakespeare, we'll be back with our musicals, don't worry. But for those of you who don't like Shakespeare, who are scared of Shakespeare, I would just say that you can be surprised. And I didn't think I liked Shakespeare, and then I saw Al Pacino do Shakespeare, and that changed my life, So I think that there's a reason these words and this text is still being spoken today. And I would invite any curious person to check us out.
So we'll read the comments quick. We got just a couple here. That's Patrick Flynn says, I can confirm Michael got family members to perform in his productions as a child. I have been in many.
It's true. I was thinking of Patrick Flynn when I was saying that. I was thinking of him. He gets touchy if you forget to mention him.
Oh, okay.
Oh, gosh.
One of those actors.
He gets one of those, yeah. So there's the shout out, Patrick.
And Nina Colorini says, go Spring Awakening.
Yes.
I will put up the poster on the screen here.
That wasn't too bad. I was waiting for I was waiting for the haters.
No, we're usually, that's one thing that I love about doing this is that because NEPA is seen as a largely positive media source, so much media, whether it's local or national or wherever, is so focused on the bad stories, the tragedies, the nastiness, the horrible things that go on. And I just feel like we needed to be the platform for positivity, that there are so many great things and great people doing really good stuff here that just is getting overlooked or just not being paid attention to because of those other things. So I feel like because of our focus on that, we don't get as many
That's amazing.
The trolls and the comments and stuff. We're a little insulated from it. Every once in a while somebody comes out or whatever, and we smack them a little. We make fun of them just a little bit. We just poke the bear a little bit, and then they usually go back into hibernation again, or they head over to the WNEP side.
Right. They get it out on talkback.
They can go run free over there, but not here.
No, that's great. And thank you for doing it. Thank you for getting us out there and chatting about us, but also all the other organizations. It's so, theater and the arts brings a lot of heartache as it is, and just
for sure.
For you to be, and all of your team here to be like getting the message out for all these different organizations is such a huge part that usually by the time the people who are making it come up for air, it's like, so to the NEPA scene people and to like all of you, it's just so great that you do practice this amazing opportunity to let people learn about what's happening, because so much happens in like your own backyard and you don't even realize it. So
exactly,
that's
we've even had trouble kind of figuring out, like, people ask what it is, and I'm like, well, I try to say it's a media source is the best way that I could put it, because we do the open mic and stuff, and then I have people who are like, oh, so you're a musician, and I'm like, nope.
Right,
most people run open mics are usually a musician of some kind. And so then they're like, okay, but then what is this other stuff, and how does that play into it? And it's just like, well, it's a long story. But,
Right.
But it all, at the end of the day, the purpose is to give a platform to people who are doing good, creative things in the community. So I guess media source is probably the best way we could put it.
Well, we're grateful for your media sourcing.
Well, thank you. So the coming of age rock musical Spring Awakening will be presented by the Scranton Shakespeare Festival on Friday, January 10th through Sunday, January 12th at the Shake Space inside the Marketplace at Steamtown. Tickets are $25 and on sale now at scrantonshakes.com. We also just posted the press release on our website as well, so if you want to read a little bit more about it and get some more quotes, if this whole hour-long discussion wasn't enough for you, you can go to nepascene.com and read that. But make sure you go out and support local theater so that we can do more shows like this. And if you enjoyed this, if you liked this conversation, do all the good algorithm things, like, comment, share, get it out to more and more people so that we can continue to spread that positivity throughout this coming year. I think we're going to be doing a lot of we're hopefully on a good schedule that we'll be doing a lot of these podcasts this year. The acoustic sessions, you're going to see more of those come out this year. We have a lot of exciting programming, and of course we have the open mic every Tuesday. So thanks so much for tuning in to this week's podcast, and we'll see you here next Wednesday at the same time. So have a good night, everybody.